So today we have Luisa Bolen from luisinabolen.com, and she is a personal development coach that actually can help expats on their way to relocating and basically finding their spot here in Germany so that they feel comfortable, they feel welcomed, and they know what steps they need to take in order to feel comfortable here and to be happy in this new country and this new environment. So I actually recently met you, Lucina, and that was over on Facebook. You had mentioned that you had built this ebook of how to allow, expats to thrive in their new environments and how to make the best out of a situation. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, who is she? What does she do? This was absolutely, like that missing puzzle piece to relocation for me. And that's because, as I've mentioned before to a number of my viewers, it's so important, not just to have that technical aspect, but to also be able to link that to your emotions and be entirely ready. Sometimes your emotional state or that portion of relocating is actually more important than the technical part at the end of the day, because sometimes, it just doesn't work out. And sometimes people end up going home and then they think, or they like to blame it on, a number of other situations, like the paperwork didn't work out, or it was just too tough, or I couldn't do this or that. When I think a lot of the time people don't realize that it has a lot more to do with their emotions and how prepared they actually were mentally before they came. So I thought the information that you were able to build and send off to some of these expats in the different Facebook groups has been absolutely incredible. So I checked out what you were all about and I thought, oh my God, I have to get in contact with her. She's absolutely amazing. So I would love it if maybe you could kind of introduce yourself, let people know a little bit more about you, kind of what got you started.
So where do I start? Maybe from the fact that I've been a long-term expat. I've been an expat for 21 years now. And I have also worked in personal development for around 18 years. So these two brought me to working with expats and helping them to thrive. So as you mentioned, it is in many cases, if not in all of them, the mindset. So what I do is I work with expats all around the world and I help them to really find their happiness wherever they are, whether it's a new country, whether it's if they decide to go back, whether it's their home country. I help them boost their confidence and find the resources that they already have, but maybe they don't know how to access them, in the midst of all the procedures, formalities, processes, so that they can really not only manage and get by, and survive, but that they can thrive and be their real selves wherever they are.
Absolutely. And so you do a lot, I guess, with people moving to Germany. And I also read, and we also talked about this, that you spent also personally a lot of time in Germany.
Exactly. So I prefer to say what I do rather than what my title is, because I think it better explains how I can help. If I just say I'm a talent manager or I'm a learning and development consultant, or what I do now is coaching, but I have done learning and development and talent management. So I took people's potential and unleashed it, unlocked it. I've worked in Germany for many years, altogether 8 years. I lived in Frankfurt, Karlsruhe, and Braunschweig. So this is probably how we met, because I'm still attached to Germany, although I don't live there at the moment, but you never know what the future holds. So I worked for 2 recruitment companies in Germany, and I have met many, many amazing people.
Yeah, and I think also I checked online and I've been through your website thoroughly, and I think the coolest part about your website is probably that you don't just say, I am a coach, or I am able to kind of lead you along the right path to becoming a successful expat, living in not just Germany, but any country, but you actually built this kind of like program around it that even got me excited, even though, I've been here for so long, but I see this program and, it says like it's a Thrive Abroad program and it could be, 10 weeks long in personal coaching and stuff. And I thought that was just a really cool way to kind of, I guess, show people the potential that they could have and the access that they could get to really make sure that they thrive in this new environment, right? So very, very cool.
I built it actually off the back of the demand that I received. So people have been coming to me with similar challenges, and I thought, okay, I really need to build something for them. Having been an expat myself, having trained as a corporate trainer expats all my life, now that I think about it, I have only worked with expats all my 21 years of expat life. And I thought I need to build something for them so that they have a purpose, meaning, direction, and are super happy.
What would you say to somebody who is just moving, not just to Germany, but to any country, of course, for the first time? How could they really set themselves up for success, not during the move, but actually before? Like, is there anything that we can do as
Hmm.
expats to kind of mentally prepare ourselves before we actually make that big step?
Of course, there is. You've said mentally prepare. So this is what I will get at, because we start with the research, with the paperwork, with joining Facebook groups, looking up all this information online, the neighborhoods you want to live and the healthcare in that country. And we join language and courses. And this is all good because you need to prepare. If you fail to prepare, you should prepare to fail. Most of us know it. But I think what I have experienced, what I have noticed is that we forget to prepare ourselves,
Hmm.
and we forget to do this check-in with ourselves if we have the right mindset. What I would suggest we do is to tap into our resources and trust or believe in ourselves that we can manage whatever challenges come up, and they will. This has to be clear. We will be able to embrace them. So I would start with boosting our self-confidence and self-belief that it will be difficult, complicated, to say the least, maybe just different. But if we go with the mindset that I can manage that, I've done it before, if we actually remind ourselves all the occasions, situations that we have tackled in the past, all the difficulties that we've overcome, I think this will be the best preparation. I remember when I moved, not last time, but the one before, I was moving with my family. Even though I had done it before many, many times, I went crazy. I spent, I think, months with my to-do list trying to set myself for success and have all the information ready. I was moving from Barcelona, Spain to France, and then I stopped in the middle of it, thinking, you can do it. You've done it so many times. You're helping people to do it, so you can manage. But I think because I had a 9-month-old boy, I really wanted to make sure that not only myself but my family, was ready for it. And then when I stopped and I thought, you've done it before, you can manage. So I think the mindset is key.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for
Mhm.
sure. And I think like we don't take enough time for ourselves to really like step back and ask ourselves, are we actually like are we prepared? Yes, but are we actually prepared? Are we mentally prepared?
Yeah.
And are we ready for it? And I think sometimes the
Mhm.
excitement of the move kind of masks that, and people say, "Oh, it's going to be
Yeah.
amazing," but they don't set themselves up already knowing, okay, it is going to be amazing, but there are so many other steps along the way that will make it hard. It's
Yeah.
it's inevitable regardless of where you move to, and it's
Yeah.
not just Germany and the fact that it's a difficult language to learn and maybe people aren't always super friendly. It can happen anywhere, and it always happens. And as you mentioned, it doesn't matter
Absolutely.
how many times you do it. It still can happen. You just have to kind of tell yourself
Yeah.
and understand your emotions and what you're going through and what you will go through, which is
Absolutely. Like
really,
a quick check in,
yeah,
I can do it. I can handle it. I've done it before. I'm confident I can manage. And instead of doing all the lists and researching or overdoing the research, I think to take time maybe to meditate or to figure out a routine
yeah, for
to
sure. That's
prepare yourself mentally.
definitely important. Absolutely. And you've also mentioned before how important it is to kind of ask yourself, what is my why? And I know you mentioned it sounds, so philosophical or something, but um, I agree. And it got me thinking. And I started realizing, I never asked myself that question. My why was because I met my boyfriend, who, I mean, at the time was my boyfriend, now my husband. And that was just kind of my why. But I was wondering, is it super important to kind of figure out, I guess, a little bit more complexity to it? Or, yeah, how do
Mhm.
people figure out exactly why? Because I guess it's not just for work or just for your husband or your girlfriend or whatever.
Mm.
There might be more to
Yeah.
it, but I'd love if you could kind of like
Yeah.
expand on that what
Sure.
is my why
Yeah.
question.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we are always excited, or most of the times we're excited about the move, and we kind of take it for we take the why for granted. It might be for love, it might be for work, it might be for family reasons. I think it is good from experience again to know your reasons. So if it is for the love, to know exactly why you're doing it, to also have some additional reasons, not only that job, not only the love, because if it doesn't work out, which it can happen, at least you know what were the reasons that you do it, but for yourself, including and considering and taking yourself into account.
Hmm.
So that in case things do not work out according to your plan, you're not disappointed. So that you don't set unrealistic expectations. So if you say, I'm moving because of this job, I'm moving because I want a new challenge, I am moving because I'm curious about this culture, I'm moving because my husband or my boyfriend is from the country, I would like to spend some time there, then at least you have this reason, and then it gives you some kind of direction,
Hmm.
right? You can then easier set goals because you know why you're moving. And if you have any challenges and difficulties, I think it will be just easier to embrace them. Yeah, some people move because they think life will be better, somewhere else. So they don't do it being very, very self-aware, and they escape or they run away. And what unfortunately tends to happen is that the problems or the issues that they had in their home country or in the previous country accompany them, follow them, so that they
Yeah.
find themselves again disappointed, unhappy, overwhelmed. So if you know why you're moving, you'll be moving for the right reasons. And if anything should change, you'll be in the position to change your decisions, to move on, go back, and you won't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I never really
Mm,
did ask myself that question, I guess, but I think it's
mm,
also important to know, like, I guess it's never too late. So for me, yes, it's obvious, I moved here for love and I moved here because I really wanted to be with him. But at the same time, I also felt like sometimes I probably wasn't that fair to him. And sometimes I'm still not that fair to him because I put so
yeah,
much pressure on the fact that I moved for him. I gave up my whole life for him. But if you step back and look at that, then you also think, you know what, my life here is amazing. Even if I wasn't with my
mhm,
husband at the moment, I probably wouldn't even go back to Canada, to be honest, because there's so many other reasons
yeah,
why I moved, and it wasn't just him. Like
yeah,
there's
mm,
other reasons to
amazing.
blame. And I think
Yeah,
that I've only
absolutely.
just figured that out now, which is 7 years later.
Yeah,
So, had I have known that at the beginning, I have to say, I think for me and for him, it would have been a lot easier because now I never,
yeah,
I can't blame things on him when anything goes wrong.
yeah,
It's
exactly. We tend to hold others accountable. So it's the job, it's the country, it's the language, it's the partner. But if we did it if we did it for our reasons, then we cannot blame anyone. We can
Yeah,
just observe and say, okay, I made this decision. Now it's time to make another one. But then no one is to blame. And I think you're just fairer to yourself and to everyone else.
yeah, I think so too. And I think,
Mm,
I mean, for me, it's really cool that I'm able to see this now. But it's even better, of course, when people can see that from the get go. But sometimes it happens, that people kind of like lose focus or lose that clarity as to why did they really
mm.
come. So, do you have any tips for people to kind of be able to really ingrain that into them and remember and kind of keep on track and maintain that focus and maintain that clarity when they move forward into their new lives?
Mhm. So I think with maintaining clarity and focus, we should take care of it, whether we leave or wherever we are really, whether we stay or leave. So we think that in the new country, we tend to have unrealistic expectations, and we think that after the move, everything will still be like moonlight and roses, and we expect that things will just happen for us, that we will get a lot of help, but we still are accountable for our goals, for our life. So we need to continue working on our clarity. So if there are things that we know keep us focused, we need to continue doing them, and even to a bigger extent abroad. So I would take some things with myself, if I can put it this way. So if I used to do routines back home or in the previous country where I lived, I will take those routines because I know they work for me. If I know that I love swimming, I will go and find a swimming pool, in the new country. If I know I'm a social person, I will go and I will look for places where I can meet people, where I can interact. So I will make sure that I do not wait for someone to come and keep me focused and clear about my goals. I will take charge of those myself.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think really going back, I guess, yeah, to this maybe creating a sort of list. And actually, funny that you mentioned that is because at the very, very end of the program, and I was telling you this is what we lack in the program is this personal development and moving forward. And that was my very
Yeah.
tiny tip at the very end was what worked best for me was definitely actually being able to write down a list of the things that I love from back home and integrate them into my new life. And I mean, it always changes, of course. You might have kids or meet new friends and your focus or
Yeah.
your intentions or I don't know passions might change, but constantly referring back to that list has always helped me kind of I always say I miss just going for a Tim Hortons coffee in Canada. For any Canadians will know exactly what I'm talking about, probably Americans too, where we just like go and we sit and we
Yeah.
drink coffee and eat donuts at Tim Hortons with my friends, and we did it like almost daily. And so being able to kind of take that and reintegrate that into my new life and then find things that were not only par to what I was doing back home, but perhaps even better. Of course, those friendships I miss every day, and that's normal. But I've been able to create new friendships and explore new coffee shops and find ones that I really really love and that are super unique and that have allowed me to meet
Amazing.
even more people. So I think that that is such an
Yeah.
important way to kind of integrate and feel comfortable in a country. But then, of course, you've also got
Yeah.
that big question of, okay, I'm happy here, with my life, but how do I actually integrate into the country and like meet the locals and feel comfortable this way? So do you have any tips? Like, is there a wrong
Hmm.
or a right way to actually integrate into a country?
Well, I don't think there is, the way, the right or the wrong way. Absolutely not, because it depends on the individual. What you mentioned before is that, it ties in very well with focus and clarity. If you're self-aware, you will know what keeps you focused wherever you are. The same with clarity. If you are a person who likes setting goals, you will know why you're there, right? We started with the why. So everything will be just smoother. So I think the mindset, not having expectations, not judging, but just observing, will help you then determine how can I integrate. We mentioned the language. Of course, you want to start learning language before in an ideal case scenario. Even if you say, well, I'm here just for a year or two. I don't need this language. It's not necessary for me to speak German, French in my job. If you approach it that it is an adventure, that it's like a cultural insight, and if you learn the language, you can meet people through that. You don't need to, again, aim for a certain level. As for integration, there are many things you can do, but I would keep the ways that appeal to you.
Hmm.
And if you're open, you will take everything with a lot of curiosity rather than comparing. Oh, this is like this here. It wasn't like that back home or in the previous country where I lived. So I might be repeating myself, but I think I'm doing it on purpose so that this sticks with the audience that's watching us, to be curious and to observe rather than judge, and do everything that appeals to you, that you used to do. But like you said, adding maybe the special German touch, even upgrading your experience.
Definitely. And I think I have to be honest, as an international myself, I think we judge all too all too often. And I think that it happens a lot in Germany, where somebody comes here and then they just like kind of get into this like rolling vicious ball where the expats come together and they're constantly bickering and complaining about Germany does this and like we don't need to learn the
Mm,
language, especially, I mean, in Berlin, of course it's easy not to learn the language, you can speak English, but I think,
mm,
yeah, these things are so key to properly integrating. And I think that's the biggest thing, like you mentioned, actually being able to like go out and be curious rather than judge. And I think we always like daily need to step back
yeah,
and say, okay, yes, it's easy to judge and it's easy to compare, but sometimes you just have to say stop, like stop yourself
yeah,
from doing that, and be curious
yeah,
and embrace the fact you
yeah,
came here for a reason, and it wasn't to complain or to judge, it was to explore something
absolutely.
new and to embrace something new. So
Yeah,
maybe the things you love back home aren't necessarily
yeah,
the same as here, but there are definitely,
yeah,
I mean, every day some things happen that I don't like in Germany, but every day I always find some kind of silver lining or another reason why I moved here and not just being for love,
mm,
So
yeah.
I think that's really
Sure, of
cool.
course, there are many practical tips, right? If we were to come up with a list of what everyone should do or can do, yes, we would start with the language. We would, I would recommend joining Facebook groups with other expats, but also with other locals. If you like sports, join local sports clubs. This is where you will also meet the locals. You will do something good for yourself, for your body and soul. We mentioned the language course where you can network. So it's not only for the language purposes, but you can meet other like-minded people.
Hmm.
Um, and then just being open. You can meet people sitting on the bus. You can integrate just walking down the street if you're, again, curious and
Yeah.
open.
And I think that that also answers the following question that I wanted to ask you, is that we as internationals or as expats, especially when we come here in an English speaking job, or perhaps we already know a couple people here who do speak the English language, or French or whatever, there's different types of these expat bubbles that
Yeah.
we like to call them here, especially in Düsseldorf. But it's so easy to kind of fall in these patterns of just making this little bubble of friends and then never leaving it. So do you have any tips of like how to get people out of this expat bubble and really kind of maximize
Mm.
on their potential here?
So I wouldn't go to the extreme. So I think it is good to hang out with other expats, for sanity reasons, because they will understand you. You have a lot in common. So if you say, no, I need to avoid this group or that group because I really need to integrate and learn, the language, then you might find yourself forcing into something. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just maintain a balance of meeting the locals, for the integration purposes, just because you're curious, you want to learn about the culture and about the traditions, but then you can, a few times a week, meet people from your own country or other expats. If we talk about potential, and here I mean potential at work,
Mm-hmm.
some expats, they feel like they cannot truly be themselves abroad, so they tend to do what's expat friendly, so they don't really go beyond what they truly would be capable to do otherwise. So again, this is where we would go back to the mindset,
Yeah.
to boost your confidence and knowing your strengths, knowing what you're good at, and just unleashing it.
I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, that's for sure. And I think that's why we have amazing people like you to support us. I think my best example has got to be one of my best friends who moved from Canada over to Germany just a couple of years ago. And I have to say, like, he's been the best example of somebody who's really maximized his potential. He came from like an
Yeah,
outstanding job in Canada, but the way I knew him as a child, and we've been best friends since we were little, is he was super shy, and he had his small group of friends, and he wasn't super outgoing. He wasn't a huge partier. But then when he moved to Berlin, when he moved to Germany, he's just got this like energy and this excitement and this motivation, and he's an entirely different person, but in the best way possible, if that makes sense. So like, I just see him, and I know
amazing.
both sides of him now, but he's just like, it's really made him, this incredible human being. And I think that he's more happy because of it, because he's been able to really unleash that potential and make the best out of the situation. And whether or not he stays,
Wow.
like for the long run, I'm not sure. But I think that for him, this experience was just incredible. And I have to say, I don't see many people all that often kind of really reach that level, especially without
Mm,
support with someone like you, for example. So for him, it was just
yeah.
amazing. But I mean, I
Mm,
know for others, it's not always easy, and some
yeah.
of us
Yeah.
might reach a point, and I know a lot of my friends who I've met in Düsseldorf, this was actually the biggest reason why I created my welcome program, was to encourage people to stay and to get through these hurdles. But sometimes I think at the end of the day, so it's just not for somebody, or and they don't know what to do next. Like, they don't know, should I keep pushing on? Is it my fault that I'm like not able to integrate well here? Or is it okay to give up? Is it okay to go home? Is it okay to move
Mm,
on?
mm,
And I talk about this a little bit in the welcome program in terms of there's actually different stages of expat grief and how we might feel. Like, we go through the stages of excitement, we go through the stages of loneliness, we go through the stages of hating
yeah.
all the paperwork and being like, no, I'm going to go home. And then we also have that stage of being super proud, like, I'm super proud right now and say, yeah, Düsseldorf's my city, but sometimes we feel like we don't belong here or there. And so there's so many different kind of like waves of emotions that we go through. But at the end of the day, how do we really know what the right decision is?
Mm,
Because I think a lot of people just
mm.
throw in the towel and say, I'm leaving because I don't know how to do this. Or vice versa, they think everybody's going to think I failed. So I'm going to stay here and
Mm,
be miserable because I don't want my family to
mm.
judge me when I go back home.
Yeah, it's a very valid point. I'm actually working with someone from Stuttgart who wants to move on, and they are not sure whether they should stay, whether they should go, whether they should go back. And you mentioned failing and giving up. First of all, I would refrain from using these words, even though I know that we just tend to see it all black. So I think if we started with a lot of clarity why we moved, and if we are focused, and if we take care of ourselves and we try to unleash our potential and we still notice that mm, it's not happening, I do not feel right, then it's not failing, it's just taking another decision. And it's absolutely fine to move on to another country, to move on to another city within that country, or go back, but again, not feeling guilty or having to justify or explain to anyone. As long as we can explain to ourselves, this is all that should count.
Mhm.
So some places are just not for us, even though we have put all the effort. If we have, then we just need to realize that, well, it was an experience. I learned from it. I was curious. I have become more resilient, more interesting, and I am taking all this and I will become a different person, a better person, in my next destination. To stay, even if you're miserable, is the worst thing you can do. So, it's, I know it might sound banal, but we learn from decisions. So there are no right and wrong decisions. The decision to move to a place was the best decision you could have taken, I could have taken. And here, if I were to speak from my experience, I moved from Spain and France, which I mentioned already. And after living in France for a year and a half, together with my family, we decided that France wasn't for us. It was an amazing country, but we just didn't feel that it gave us what we needed at that point in time. So we might go back, but where we were in life, it just wasn't for us. It's not now to criticize and mention stereotypes. It just wasn't a good fit for us at that point in time. So we moved to Poland. Again, we are not sure whether we will be staying or moving, but we're trying to make the best of it while we are here, while it lasts. Because after having lived in 6 countries, I know that being mindful, just being in the moment, is the best piece of advice I could give to anyone.
Definitely. And being able to look back and really say, what I did, even if it was just, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. I think a lot of people
Mm,
always say, oh, I don't want to have had thrown away, 5 years of my life. And I think you're right. That's the wrong way to
yeah,
look at it. It's more
yeah,
like, even if you were there 6 months, I've had some friends who went on travel experiences for 6 months, expecting to go there for the rest of their lives and have come back home,
yeah,
and they were always the type of people, for example, who said, I can't stay in this tiny town. I don't want to live like and work in this dead end job. But then when they left, they were able to come back, and it gave them more clarity that that is what they wanted. They really enjoyed it. They just needed a little bit kind of to get out of that shell and experience the world, and then see, okay, it's cool, but I'm really excited to go back to my roots and fall in love with
yeah,
home again, which is also okay.
yeah.
I had you kind of put together a number of questions that expats and internationals commonly ask you on a daily basis, answers that you constantly have to go through. And one of them that I found really interesting that you mentioned was, as expats, how are we supposed to find a direction in life when many of us actually have no real destination or no roots to kind of move forward
Mhm.
with? So I'd love
Yeah.
to know that how you answer that question when people ask you,
Mm.
like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. So how do I focus on my life
Yeah.
now when I have no kind of like concrete plans or
Yeah.
things to look
Yeah.
forward to, perhaps?
Yeah. This is probably one of the most common questions because we feel like we need to have it all figured out. We feel like we need to know how long we are staying and what we are staying for and what will happen next. So, this is where I encourage people to write their mission statement, think about their vision. And this is where they get all stressed like, I have no idea. How can I just draw something if I don't know what's going to happen next week? And the purpose of drawing your vision for the next 3 5 years or writing a mission statement is not for this vision to really come true exactly how you drew it or wrote it, is for you to have motivation to get up and having goals to work towards and having a direction. And it's absolutely fine if you're flexible with those goals and if this direction changes, but it will give you, this stability, and also confidence that you're not stranded anywhere, that you have a plan and you're working towards that plan. As soon as you feel that, oh, this is not working out for me anymore, you're more than happy to change this plan. But to have a plan is to give you motivation. This is, I think, what I'm trying to explain. It's for the motivation purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot really foresee what future holds, for us in store. So we need to be adaptable. So if we have a vision, we will be able to respond to those opportunities that come, and we'll have clarity. We'll be able to take the right decisions and say, because of this and that reason, I am moving, I'm going back, I am
Yeah.
staying. And it then feels like I'm in harmony, I'm in sync. I do not live in the past, I'm not regretting, I'm not comparing, I don't look into the future too much. I'm just here and now.
Yeah, that's super similar actually. Last year, it's gonna sound super random, but last year I took a sewing class with a Swede. I believe she was Swedish, and she mentioned something super random in the class, and she said, in order for somebody to be happy, in the now and where they are, they need to focus on three things. And I was like, okay, what? She was like, they need to have somebody to love, something to do. So whether that's work or a hobby or whatever, you need to kind of feel like busy and
Yeah,
on the go. and then you need to have something to look forward to. And I think the third
Hmm.
kind of resonated with me the most, especially during this pandemic, was like, I can be happy in the now
Yeah,
as long as I have something to look forward to. And that's, I think, what, as you mentioned, is so important, is kind of like having that plan, set in place. It can change, you don't have to look forward to the same thing all the time. It can be
yeah,
smaller, it can be huge.
yeah,
But for me, during this pandemic, and I caught COVID, and I was inside for like a solid 4 weeks, and it just about killed me. And the whole time I was just like, okay, like keep looking forward. At some point you're going to be able to go outside, and there's something to look forward to at the end. And that kind of,
yeah,
I guess, pushed me on and gave me the motivation to
yeah,
move forward.
yeah. An
Yeah.
amazing story. I mean, as I mentioned, I think I moved 29 times. I had to count them. If I think about all the cities, and I've lived in 6 countries, and I've been asked many times, oh, why did you move so often, so much, and how did you manage it all, and what was the reason, and how did you feel when leaving and then when coming to a new place? And I remember that I've always tried to remain very, very like excited and focused on the moment, not to look back too much, and not to compare too much, because then you just end up living, in your head rather than enjoying what's around you.
I think,
Mm.
there's been so many good tips that I know, even for people who are just beginning and who are just moving to Germany or any other country, but as well as for people who have perhaps lived here for a while, or even Germans who decide to watch the video. I think that
Yeah.
this it serves as a great, amazing purpose. I guess, as a little walk away, perhaps, do you have any final tips or maybe ways that we can, as internationals moving for the first time, since you're a professional yourself at this, at moving and
Mm.
relocating, what would be kind of like your biggest tip to ensure a stress-free and worry-free move?
Mm. I think we've mentioned a lot, so I don't want to repeat myself. I think I would dare to encourage everyone to go and live abroad, even if it's for a short period of time, because it would change your life. This is I conducted a survey with expats and nomads around the world, and the comment or the contribution that has been repeated over and over again was, it will broaden your horizons, it will change your life, and it will be the best lesson about yourself and the world. So this is maybe not a tip, but like a nudge, a push for everyone to go outside their comfort zone and do it, because they think they cannot, but they can. And once they've done it, it might sound surprising, but I would advise them to be selfish, to really take care of themselves first,
Yeah,
because only then can they be a better parent, a better partner, a better employee. So to really take care of their health, of their well-being, to work out routines, morning and evening routines, that will keep them in sync with themselves, in harmony with themselves. I could talk ages about that, but each and every client that I work with, we tackle that beast first, and the second beast is, who are you?
hmm,
What is your potential? What are you amazing at? What makes you different? How do you stand out? So having your routines and having, the peace of mind, the harmony, and knowing how you stand out in the crowd, you can do just about anything.
amazing. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for all of this amazing
you're
information
welcome.
that I know will help so many wonderful people. And if anybody wants more information, they can go to your website, lucinabolen.com. They can also check out the Thrive program, a Thrive Abroad program there as well. And Lucina actually offers as well these free discovery sessions that are, I guess, 30 minutes long, right?
Yeah,
Where I guess people can basically just, go through their thoughts in the process and where they are in their life,
yeah,
and kind of build up some sort of structure to see how it is that
yeah,
you'll be able to work together, which I think is
yeah,
incredible. And then maybe if you're willing, to also be able to offer this amazing ebook that I checked out and that made me fall in love with you from the beginning. Maybe if you're willing to share that with them, then we can also include below a way for them to get in contact with you,
sure.
to be able to download that if you're up for that.
Absolutely. It's downloadable, so we can include the access link, and then I'm more than happy for them to download it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Cool.
That is all.
Thank you, Jenna. It was lovely to be here.